And welcome back to another episode of A Recent Study Suggests. We are your hosts. I'm Robert.
And I'm Sam.
And we have a really exciting episode today because we have a special guest, very special guest, I think, Tessa Barrera.
Hi. Thanks so much for having me. And I feel very special. Thank you.
You're very special. I was going to say you're our first guest, but unfortunately that's not true. You're our second guest, though.
Oh, okay. That's top 5. I'll take that.
Top 5, yeah. And just like a quick primer, who are you? Like, how would, what do you want people to know you from?
Well,
or what might people know you from?
I think the biggest thing I've ever done in my life was get Rod Ryan to hire me. So I'm the co-host on the Rod Ryan Show, which is Houston's favorite morning show on 94.5 The Buzz, which is where I know you from, Robert. And I'm there with Alex, Chile, and Rod, and we call it 4 Hours of Pain every morning, 6 to 10, and it's a bunch of cutting up, and it's the funnest job I've ever had. So that's hopefully what I want people to know me from.
Right, and you did mention jobs, and that kind of just segues perfectly into what this study is about. But before we get into that, what is a recent study suggest?
So a recent study suggests, as the name would suggest, is our podcast where we talk about studies that have come out recently that sometimes will just get us talking, and they're basically just conversation starters.
Right, like you've been in news before, Tessa, and there's so many headlines that are just like recent study suggests this wildly absurd thing, right?
Yes.
One day it can be like drinking coffee is super good for you. The next day, drinking coffee is bad for you.
Yes, my favorite one was when they had discovered that I think like a recent study suggests that drinking a glass of wine is equivalent to like 30 minutes or an hour of working out. It was something absurd like that. And I was like, yes, okay, I'll work out for like 3 hours tonight, according to this recent study. But in news, we loved our surveys. We loved our studies because they were interesting tidbits that would also fill time.
Right. And this one is about work spouses and the importance of them, which I think we've all had jobs, right?
Yeah.
As you mentioned. And it's just Sam didn't know that work spouse was a thing before we really started researching this.
Oh yeah, definitely not. That was not something that I was aware of, and we often look through studies and I was like, what? Work wives, work husbands? And I was immediately against it. But we have 2 studies actually today, and the first one is very convincing in talking about the importance of work wives and work husbands, where the other speaks to the opposite end of the conversation. So this will be interesting.
What I love about younger kids, because you guys are younger and you're not kids, but younger adults, is that you don't accept just a saying as is. So you hear work spouse and you're like, what is that? Why are we using that? Like, that sounds weird. Right. It does. And when you think about it, it's been so used. I think when I got here to Houston, April, Rod's wife said, oh, you're going to be Rod's work wife. And it was so interesting. And that's his actual wife,
Right.
that I was going to be his work wife. It's like, what a weird term that we are comfortable with. But that's what I love about the younger generation coming up, is like, you guys question everything, and you don't like the labels and things that a lot of people, that like, I've just accepted them. I never thought, okay, why do we say work wife, work husband? Like, I just was like, okay, yeah, that's a little weird, maybe a little cringe, but we use it, whatever.
Yeah, and it is a little weird because Simply Hired, like the job search and like Indeed, they said that a work spouse is of the gender that you're attracted to.
Oh, no, no. I know.
Right, that's immediately caught me off guard. I'm like, really? Why does it have to be of the gender that you're attracted to?
So it's like maybe someone you have an affinity for and you already have a sig other. Like, yeah, that whole thing is just all wrong and all weird. I know from my experience, I feel like I've had more work wives than anything, quote unquote work wives. Like, I've had sisters and girls that I've bonded with because they were kind of going through the same thing I was. And I'm better for those work wives.
And so exactly, if it's not the same gender that you're attracted to, they're just the same gender, doesn't that just make them a friend?
Well, I think I think you have a lot of acquaintances and friends at work. Like I worked with so many female reporters and anchors when I was in the news business. Here at the Rod Ryan Show, I'm the only girl. So I get it's slim pickings. Like I would have to have a work husband. It would have to be a dude. But at my job before that, it was all girls. And I think you find the people that you like your tribe, like the people that you kind of act more like than anything else. So me and my friend Anayeli, who I'm still friends with to this day, we used to always laugh because we were food sharers before the pandemic. Of course, we would be like, hey girl, I have snacks at my desk. Like, I know if you just came back from a report or you were out on assignment, help yourself. She knew kind of like my desk was her desk and vice versa. Like if we needed anything, we weren't going to be that. We felt like other people were very stingy or very like, who touched my stuff? Who is doing that? So we always, that was kind of our thing. So she was my friend, but she was more like my people. So she was, you know, it was a deeper level for us. And, you know, she's the person you're going to call with like, hey dude, I like maybe accidentally peed my pants. Do you have an extra pair of pants? Or I have a huge stain on my shirt. Do you have an extra shirt or dress? So it was like when the shit hits the fan, that you go to your work wife for the emergencies, not like this rando who is a friend, but they're gonna look at you like, okay, like that's kind of your problem. Like,
yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I have a very similar story where I was working somewhere and I had a friend who I considered a friend, and now after looking at these studies, maybe she was a work wife. She was a part of my tribe, I guess, and we would share food often.
Yeah.
We would share food, we would text each other, we knew things about each other, and we were just really good friends. And I worked very closely with her for a summer, so I guess if we're talking about work spouses, it was a bit of a summer fling. And I gained 10 pounds of relationship gut that summer. So I totally get it. Having your tribe, food sharing. Food, I feel like, is a really easy way to show your love and appreciation for a person.
Yes.
And we loved and appreciated each other a lot, I guess. 10 pounds later.
I love that. And it would be like little surprises. Like she'd leave me a note at my desk, like couldn't finish my sandwich, here, enjoy. And I'm like, dude, how dope is that to go to your desk and like have a random like snack that you didn't plan for waiting for you? It's so thoughtful. It's so nice. Or, hey, I'm going on a coffee run. Do you want anything? It's just, you know, they make a place that was really, really stressful. Like newsrooms are so stressful and chaotic. She made it feel warm even when the days were hard. So I'm like forever grateful for that work wife. That is my boo.
And those are some of the benefits of work spouses. They help with productivity, overall happiness, and they can be stress relievers. So there is something to this whole work spouse thing.
Right. It's just that, like, it's someone that you can count on, someone that makes you laugh and you can be happy around. And so that just leads to better productivity.
Yes. I will say on the other side of that, having a work husband is as stressful as I imagine it would be to have a real husband, because Rod is the host of the show and he is the one in charge. So this has been his show. It's been his baby for so long. So I have to come in and not burn the place down. And I have this weird, like, I want to make him so proud of me. And I put this level of stress on him. I'm like, oh my God, like, why do I care so much what Rod thinks about me? Like, like, I don't try to impress anyone this much in my regular life, but because he is who he is in radio, I find myself like, I just want him to think I'm cool one time. If I can do that, like one time a week, I'm like, yeah. Stressful.
So it could sometimes add stress if you're trying to impress them.
I think so. And I think definitely, like, everyone, even though we are committed to keeping it light, tight, and bright and having fun on the show, people have their off days. Like, people have their off days. And if Rod's not in a good mood, I'm like, okay, I'm like checking my inner boxes. I'm like, did I do something? Like, did I forget something? And it can make me anxious. You know, so I very much in that aspect. But then when the show's going good and things are rolling, it's like, oh my gosh, like it's it's the happy wife, happy life. Like we're both happy. Like we're both making, like we're kind of vibing back and forth off the energy. So it can be a work. My experience with my work wives and my work husbands has been very different.
It sounds very much like a real relationship.
Yes.
What about you, Robert? Have you ever had a work spouse?
Not really. I just kind of like play up like bromances.
Yeah.
Just because I think it's funny. Like I have a coworker and he'll email the group saying, "Hey, I did this thing," and I'll reply back with like a gift saying, "Oh, you're the best. This is the best story anyone's ever written," and like no one could do a better job than you. And like I just like to play it up because I just think it's funny.
Okay. I would say that you've had another work spouse before.
It kind of sounds like you're leading me somewhere.
Robert and I actually used to work together.
Oh,
when we were in high school.
See?
Yep.
And look at you now.
Now we're working together again.
Still in high school.
Not in high school. But yeah, we used to work at a church and we would sing for the choir.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, we started off as friends and then it got so serious that now we've been dating for almost 10 years. So work spouses can be a very real thing.
It's almost like a testing ground too. It's like, man, this is going so well at work. You can observe this person in their natural work environment. There's not a lot of pressure. You know, they're not performing for you. You're not performing for them. And you can literally see their authentic self, you know, at work. And then you can say, well, damn, like I want to take that to the next level. Like I want you around, not just at work. I want you around like regular social life too. And that's great. I did have a photog as well, who we had the most fun relationship and everyone thought he was my boyfriend. Every single person thought he was my boyfriend. He was a good looking guy and he was so fun. And we were always Instagramming and teasing each other. And we had to answer the questions all the time. I mean, if he was talking to someone, she would say, well, what's going on with you and Tessa? You know, what's going on with you and Tessa? He'd be like, dude, nothing. And same with me. He'd be like, well, that Fernando guy, like he's a good looking guy. Like you guys hook up. And I'm like, no, we don't. Like it's totally platonic, but we did have a natural teasing chemistry that I think people just assumed like, oh, you guys are dating, you know?
Yeah, but that chemistry is also good for work. It's so good. It doesn't always have to be like a romantic thing. It could be the chemistry you have together that helps both of you out and just like helps come across like a better product when you were doing like news and stuff. Absolutely.
On my first post with Alex on the show, people were like, oh, they're out together. Like it was like a scandal. And you know, Alex is in a very happy and committed relationship. Like I had just gotten to Houston, ready to hoe around. Like I was not like trying to date a coworker, and it's Alex, like who I consider like a little brother. But people, you know, just I think they really they won't do it so much two guys, two girls, but when it's a guy and a girl, it's like you guys are dating. You're, you know, and it's so weird.
Yeah, I think it's hard for people to imagine that guys and girls can be just friends.
Yeah. Chili and Alex, that's a bromance. That's a work husband relationship. They are totally in love with each other. And I must say, I am jealous of how much they support one another. Because I'm like, oh my God, I want that.
Yeah, while you're over here stressing, trying to impress Rod.
Oh,
it's like, be nice to me. We're like Rod and I are like the old, like, married work couple, and they're like the cool younger, like look how young and cool they are, like their relationship is so less stressful than ours.
But going back to what I said earlier, people find it hard to believe that guys and girls can be just friends, and that is something that sometimes a negative could happen with work spouses and work husbands, that you could find them attractive if they're the gender that you're attracted to. And that's something that so Simply Hired and the Society for HR Management, they did a study, and it ranges between 25 and 50%, or maybe even higher, of people that found their work spouse attractive. And so I think that's when it starts getting a little messy, a little tricky. How do you navigate that?
Well, I think before I was in media, I go back to like my bartending days, my bartending and my bar managing days. And when I would hire someone, especially of the opposite sex, which I would be attracted to, like I would almost have to be a little bit attracted to them, because I'm like, if I'm attracted to them, customers and patrons and people around are going to gravitate towards them just the way I do. You know, you kind of have to, it's so weird that would be the criteria to hire someone in a like in a workspace. So that to me was always a gray area as well. But it would be the same with the girls. It's like, are they, and it wasn't always about beauty. It was like, what do they have this quality that makes me just want to hang around? You know, and that was how I would do my hiring as a bar manager. So I had a really good looking staff. I mean, everyone was, you know, young and if they weren't in the gym, they were just like tattooed. They all had something special about them. And I would look at them and I'm like, God, my staff's so hot, which is totally inappropriate. But you know, that I hired them because I knew that they could get the job done, and they in turn would attract, you know, customers to this bar. I mean, which, you know, the bar industry has a lot of gray areas, but a lot of times people don't get hired off their merit. You're going to go in and you're going to see, you know, a bunch of hot chicks or hot dudes working. But I always would say, I'm like, okay, well, how's the work ethic? Like that would be what the questions would be about. But I've definitely been attracted to my staff, but it was one of those things where it was like, that's kind of the deal you do with the devil to get the bar packed. And, you know, I'd never thought anything further of it. So,
yeah, at least you weren't acting on it in any inappropriate way or sexualizing the workplace, which is an issue, which is one of the issues that's in our second study about how we should stop talking about work spouses. What causes the problem is when we see these work spouses as more than friends, and we start to sexualize or romanticize these relationships. And one of the points is that, you know, the words that we use to describe it can define how we respond to these people. Like if one of the examples was, if you tell a kid that they're smart, then you start treating them like they are intelligent. So the words that you speak towards these relationships kind of define them or set the tone for them.
It goes back to what you were saying earlier, Tessa, like giving labels to things.
Yeah.
You know, if you give the label of someone being smart, they're more likely to perform better, or you're more likely to treat them as smart. Like if you just call them smart,
you almost speak it into existence. And I for one, I'm so ready to get rid of all the labels, all the things we do. And when I say, you know, you guys aren't that much younger, but for whatever reason, there's been a shift in the mentality. Like, why are we putting things in a box? Like genres of music, people, colors, religions. It's like, dude, that's why, like, even though we make fun of Gen Z, it's like, the vibes are off. Like, okay, your vibes are off. Like, I don't care what kind of person you are, where you come from. Like, if you don't feel right, you don't feel right. And that's what we're going off of, rather than, oh, you're from here, I'm from here. We're not, you know, like we don't match or whatever, like things like that. And I, even talking to like my younger sister about just random stuff, like, oh, you know, blacks and whites, they were separated when we were younger. Like, it doesn't, like, young people can't even wrap their head around that. They're like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, you know? So the whole work wife, I mean, I'm down to drop that altogether. Work wife, work husband. But what do we call it? Do we call it
Friends?
anything? Yeah. My people. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's unbelievable how like confusing that can be, because there was an actual article in the Washington Post that had the headline, "Does your work spouse get a Valentine?" and that's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
Because no, they don't.
Valentine is very much a love holiday, but okay, you know what? Just to play devil's advocate, on one Valentine's Day, I actually had a boyfriend during this Valentine's Day, and I remember my two good friends at work were single. So that afternoon when we went on our lunch break, like I took them to dinner, got them dinner. I think it works with the sex you're not attracted to. But if I was out there shopping for like another dude at work, I really think my boyfriend at the time would have been offended. I would be offended if my boyfriend was like shopping for a Valentine card for his work wife. I'd be like, what is this? That would be a huge red flag for me.
Yeah.
Right. It just goes back to, this definition of work spouse. Simply Hired said it's the gender that you're attracted to. Mm-hmm. But that's just a weird label that we put on it. Why can't they just be friend?
Yeah.
Right.
That's definitely how I feel about my, I guess, work wife that I had previously. We were just friends. We would buy each other like pretty expensive birthday presents because we understood each other. Like, who gives just their work acquaintance, $100 gift card to their favorite store? Like, that's something you do for a good friend.
Right.
And those are things that we would do for each other, but I would never call her a work wife at the time because I had no idea what that was. We were just friends.
Right.
And I think this kind of goes into what you were talking about. I'm glad you mentioned like our generation. One of the things that's mentioned in our second study is that how we're currently living in an era where we're trying to remove sex and romance from the work atmosphere. And so it can be counterproductive to give work friends a special label that implies something more than just being a friend.
Right. I think that's a great shift. And I think that everything you can sexualize anything. That's kind of, we have this, running joke in radio. It's like, you can kind of make anything perverted. It's the cheap laugh. We are, sexual beings. What we do in the bedroom is like one thing, but I don't know who at the beginning of work times made, sexual comments and bringing in sexual vibes like so commonplace. It was, and we have to remember, we're such a young country, like women integrating in the workforce, like that happened during our time, like our parents' time. That was a thing where, okay, men are going off to war, women are going to be in the workplace. Okay, men are back from war, are women still going to be in the workplace? Like that was an actual question that society was faced with. Now that we're all integrated and, women are still trying to, climb up and get paid as much as guys are, it's like that already is a big enough thing to deal with than to like have to work and like navigate all these labels. So I love the idea of making a shift and just saying, no, like these are, this is work, and they are your community. You see your work, you see your coworkers a lot of times more than you'll see your family. So, you want to love them, but not even love, like feels like a strong word. You want to appreciate them for what they are. Mm-hmm. And, these are some people at work will be your people and others certainly won't be. And you can go with your people and talk about the people that aren't your people and gossip about them, and it'll be great. So fun.
Yeah, it also gets a little weird calling them, at least to me, calling them work spouse, because in the work that we do, the work that you do on the show, you guys are considered a family.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And it's just that kind of like teamwork, that camaraderie that's just special. That doesn't necessarily need to be considered a work spouse. Work spouse. It's just, I don't know where I'm going with this.
They're just friends. They're just acquaintances. They're just people that you work with. They don't have to be anything more than that.
Yeah. Agree. And I think it would be like when you say it does feel like a dated saying, but like, again, when I moved here, like when Rod's wife said, "Oh, you're going to be his work wife," that is that's a thing that they would call it. And that's a saying. And I did never for a half second was like, what do you mean? Like, it was never, ever like that. But the saying itself is a bit antiquated and it just feels really old school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I like how you mentioned before how we see and speak to these people that we work with more often than our own family members or our own spouses. And so I think maybe for the article that's for the idea of work spouses is trying to fill that hole of that working so much with other people will fill when you're not surrounded by your family members and you can't speak with people. And so it kind of gives you that feeling of family and a loved one that you don't get to spend time with. And for some people, having a work spouse might be a good thing, but then there's those who take it too far. And
yeah, you a
like,
Valentine,
actually,
and you're like, what is this?
Maybe we should just give everyone Valentines, and
right,
then
we should
wouldn't
do it
feel
like
so weird
we
about
were
it.
in third grade, and everyone have a box, and everyone go
Yes.
and give treats, and I'm all for that.
I agree.
You know, it's interesting. 23% of people asked a coworker on a date that they think, or maybe they considered a work spouse, and they thought, let's take this further.
Uh-huh.
And
You would be a part of that
There you
23%.
go.
I guess I would be a part of that 20%.
And
And it worked.
so it worked out for you. I've known tons of people that date at work. I think in my very first jobs, I think I dated a fellow bartender, and I want to say it eventually imploded. So after that, I kind of had a rule like, hey, it was just so in your case, it worked out great. And that's amazing to see. And I love it when I see like a thriving relationship. But think about the couples that don't have a successful relationship and then have to go to work and be around each other. Oh my gosh. It was such a terrible experience for me. I was like, I don't think I'll ever date someone at my job again. And I haven't, and I haven't since. And that was like my first bartending job, which was, I think I was 19. I'm 35 now. So
I'm glad you mentioned that the work spouses that end up becoming actual, maybe not spouses, but they end up in a relationship. That actually happened at one of the places that I worked at. It was primarily women, but we had one guy, and he would flirt with everybody. And he had a very clear, work wife, I guess.
Uh-huh.
And they were very flirty with each other. And then they actually started dating. But then once things started going south for them, it was awkward for everyone.
Oh my God.
Because we all knew. And so there was tension when they were both in the room. It made working uncomfortable for me, and I had nothing to do with their relationship. And it made everyone so uncomfortable that he actually ended up getting fired.
Oh my God.
Because of their relationship.
See, and that's a risk you do. If you shoot your shot and it doesn't work out, oh my gosh, that's totally a risk you take, because that's your livelihood, that's your job, that's your place of employment. I've had younger, some of the younger reporters, they would go out together and we'd hear stories, and I'm like, I will never again will I do that, because it is awkward. And then it's like, and then the whole layer of social media now, like, oh, they unfollowed me on Instagram. Oh, they're not inviting me, and I know they're out. It's like, it's just a whole level of anxiety that you have to do. And that to me with the work wife ties into how close do you let all your coworkers in? Like, do you add them on Facebook? Do you add them on Instagram? Do you follow them on Twitter? Where do you draw the line? And I think with different people, it really is different. Like, you get a vibe for some people where you want them to be a part of, your social and everything like that. And some people you're like, you're going to judge me if you see my social. So I'm just going to keep you in work mode forever.
That's exactly true. Yeah, I would never friend request my boss or anyone that I'm currently working with. But if there's someone who I previously worked with that I want to kind of keep up with, then yeah, sure, I'll slip a friend request.
Yeah.
But other than that,
it's crazy.
Work is for work, and social media is for friends.
Yeah, add them on Facebook, not on Snapchat.
There you go.
In my case, I had to accept my boss's friend request because, I had to manage different pages on Facebook.
Oh, that's right.
And so they had to be my friend in order to invite me to manage them. But otherwise, I don't think I would have sent out an invite or probably accepted. I have had before where they accepted or when they send an invite, and I tell Sam, I'm like, I don't want to accept this invite, but they're gonna know that I didn't. Like, it's gonna be weird if I don't.
Because they intentionally sent you the invite and they know that you're on social media. And so like, oh, Robert's intentionally not accepting my invite.
And okay, to be fair, that's what you get for being so good with digital, because they want they want your hand in all of the Facebook accounts. They want your hand in everything that they do. And like, there's a little bit, and I can attest to this, there's a little bit like, you're like you're like on the cool young digital team. Like, if I can be friends with the cool digital team, like, that's street cred for me. Like, I know, like, look at all these young people I'm friends with on the digital team loves me. Look, I made them approve my friend request.
You're gonna make me blush.
Yeah, look at you. Everybody wants you to be their work husband.
No, honestly, he's like, that's what you get for being good at digital stuff and a master editor. It's your own fault.
In one of my previous jobs, the same thing happened where a boss sent me a invite, right? But it had nothing to do with like digital work. They just sent an invite because they want to be Facebook friends. And I told Sam about it. I'm like, I don't want it. I don't want to accept it. It's just weird to me, so I'm not going to. I deleted the invite,
okay,
or the request, and then maybe like a week or two later, they sent another one.
Ooh.
So I'm like, oh no, I can't. I can't not accept it, because they know previously they've paid attention that I haven't accepted. This is the second
time, yeah.
Right, this is the second time. If it's the third one, that might be a problem, because at this job it wasn't very big. There was maybe 5 people. 5 people in this office. So like, I had to accept to maybe not make it awkward and like maintain the relationship that we all had.
Of course.
And not make things.
Of course.
And not make things awkward. It was awkward for me, and it put pressure on me. But I'm like, I just have to do this.
Yeah.
I just have to and it's not even like a big deal. I just
No, but I mean, I feel like me on radio, I feel like I give so much of myself in the morning. Like, I tell all my business for 4 hours. So some things it's weird what we're territorial about, like what we want to keep to ourselves. Like, if I take a really nice picture, like, people think automatically, like, I would post it. Like, I keep some of the things. I'm like, this is my moment. Like, I want, like, this is like, I care about this, me being selfies and hi, and look at me, that's people I'll share that with people all day. I'm annoying. Like, I've owned that for years, but the other stuff, it's always so weird what I decide to keep for myself. I'm like, really? You think anyone gives a shit about that? That's amazing. I'm like, no, it's mine. Like, that's my part of what I choose, and it's mine, and that's it.
Yeah, I think if it weren't for this job, I probably would use social media way less. And there's a thing on Facebook specifically. I've had the same profile picture for maybe 3 years, and I don't want to change it, because when I do change it, people are going to get notified that I changed it. And I don't want them to get notified.
That's why you won't change it.
And I don't want them to get notified that I've changed it.
That's so funny.
It was like
I don't know if
that's why you don't change it.
And I don't know if there's a way to just like change it without anyone receiving it appearing on their newsfeed, but if there is, I'd like to know, just so people would.
Please tell me. Yeah, I'm totally boring on Facebook, on my like private page, which you can't search it under like my name. It's like people I actually know, friends, family. I've met you in real life, and I feel bad because I know sometimes people will find me listeners and they'll message me, and I literally I won't. I keep that little circle tight, and everything else, I'm an open book. My Facebook page, my Instagram page. I mean, they're all my Twitter. I'll give you everything I got on those. But on the other ones, I literally just go liking stuff and, oh, nice baby. Okay, cute dog. Like, that's kind of like my little like personal like people that I really know.
Yeah, I think social media or cute dogs. cute dogs, cute cats. That's the majority of social media, or at least what it should be.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
None of this arguing. Just
No.
here's a cute pet.
Yeah, show me your pets. Not who you're voting for. I don't care about that.
But that's kind of a tangent that I went on to, like the pressure that I felt to kind of maintain this, not necessarily work spouse that I had with my boss, but like just the friendship, the the camaraderie of it, just to maintain that I wish I didn't have that pressure. It's so silly to call it a pressure because it's just like, accept my friend request.
Right.
But
Right.
it turned into one for me.
But it's such it's a delicate song and dance we do with our, our people at work, our coworkers. I think definitely like the pandemic has changed that. Like rando dude that I would see in the hall, like on a normal basis, I wouldn't miss him. But the 4 or 5 weeks where I was working from home, I'd be like, I want to see rando weirdo dude in the hall. Like I miss that guy. Like I'd love to see his face right now, So it's like you miss the things that you wouldn't think. And I think one, just to be working right now, like is a huge blessing, right? Like just to have a job or have a little gig or something that like, even like a podcast to keep yourself sane right now is just a blessing. So I'm really grateful you guys brought me on here because I'm always down. I thought we were going to meet in person. I was like, do I wear a mask? Like, where are we going? And of course, Digital King over here, he's like, we'll Zoom you.
Of course, we wanted to be responsible with this.
But I think that's actually a good place to end it.
Okay.
Is there anything that you wanted to plug? Your social media?
Right after I tell people that that's not the real me, please follow me. I do share a lot, so it's at Tess1 Tess2 on everything. So TESS1 TESS2, like a mic check. Sorry, I might have messed up the audio. Yeah, like you're testing a mic, Tess, but without the T. My name's Tessa. I should have spelled it, I think. That's it. And listen to the Rod Ryan Show. It's very early, so you can listen to the podcast too. That's at thebuzz.com.
Yeah, you can listen on the radio 94.5 or the podcast like you just said.
Live.
And we are at A Recent Study Pod on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to send us your own studies, you can email them to us at arecentstudysuggest@gmail.com.
I just started following the Instagram 2 days, so I'm very excited about
I saw that.
Awesome. And be sure to rate us 5 stars on wherever you're listening to us and share us with a friend.
Yep, that's the best way to get us out there because we're a small podcast. We're growing, and so any little bit helps. And you don't have to be our work spouse or anything. Just help us out a little bit.
I will definitely share this. I can't wait.
All right. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Bye.